So, where and when were you born?
I was born in Russia, in Novosibirsk, in 1994, in December 24.
So that makes you a Capricorn, the mountain goat, in terms of your sun sign.
Yeah.
And does that describe you? Are you kind of a mountain goat?
I don't believe in astrology, so I used to believe in that, but um, now I don't. I feel like you can actually, the things that astrology is talking about, you can basically say about anyone. I don't know. But
What other words would you use to describe you? If you had three words to say who Sasha was to someone who doesn't know you, what words would you pick?
well, I would say that I'm a nice person about um, compassion. I think I'm trying to help people and mm, not to ignore the problems, that are happening around, like social problems and stuff like this. It doesn't mean necessary that I'm always nice to everyone, but I'm trying to be also fair, or like just person. And I don't know what else I can say. Maybe joyful.
Nice. Um, how did your English get so good?
I used to like my auntie. She used to live in the U.S. and then she moved to Australia. So I visited U.S. when I was a kid, and then in Australia, and then I was just traveling because I was modeling and I was speaking English all the time. Yeah, so I had a lot of practice, and I'm also listening a lot of podcasts on English, and I talk with friends on English, so I'm trying to practice, but I forget it sometimes.
Sure. Um, what was when you first went to the U.S. and Australia? What was culture shock in comparison to what you knew in Russia?
Yeah, I think it was a big influence for me because it we went to US when I was maybe like 3 or 5 years old for the first time, or like 2 years old maybe. So it was a big influence for me. First of all, the traveling in general is like going a long way, and then also the culture is really different. And I used to like, even when I was maybe like 2 or 3 years old, we had neighbors there, and they had kids, and we've been friends and stuff like this with the American kids. So yeah, I think I had kind of some inspiration. But in general, I think we still have a lot of American culture influence in the movies and in the music because it's everywhere. So we listen to it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And do you remember what surprised you that you weren't used to in terms of walking around the streets or whatever? What I was in Moscow and Leningrad a long time ago when it was USSR, and what struck me is that people didn't smile. They seemed very kind of serious,
Yeah.
and I and didn't talk to other people. It was like, I'm going to go where I'm going, but don't bother me. Is that what does that say about?
uh, well, last time I was in the US, it was like 3 years ago, and I'm just trying to compare it. Also, Australia is kind of different. I think Australia is really nice people in the sense that you are talking about, like very like really friendly people and stuff. Like they are always ready to invite you in the house, stuff like that. So to say about Russia, also because when I started modeling, then I started to travel, and I didn't live here for a few years. I only was coming for the study, and I had correspondence course. And later, I really wanted to go to Moscow and just live there and stay there. So I moved there, and I was in Moscow for maybe like 1.5 year, and then I traveled to New York for just 1 month. I wanted to stay there, but I had to go to the university in my city. So I went back to my city and I was so tired from traveling, so I just stayed here. And yeah, I can say that after being here for a few years, I can say that this is what I was recently just thinking about, is that Russian people are kind of like, yeah, maybe Russian people they feel like no one is interested about them, and that's why they are always like kind of like closed and not being able to express a lot, you know. And I think Russian culture is really like trying to put down people who are different. It's not like in the US that people are different cultures, different religions, different style in the clothes, political views and stuff. In Russia, it's more like if you are different, then you are my enemy, or something like you have different opinion, so we cannot be friends. So that's why I think it can be difficult because I don't know. I think it, but it's a lot of people who notice that I don't know if in the US. I don't think this can happen in the US because you really have like multicultural and culture, and in Russia we have more like, I think it's also after USSR when everyone was wearing the same clothes, having the same apartment and the same furniture and everything in the house, and I don't know. I don't know what is the reason for this, but yeah, I think when you start to do something different, it's a lot of people who will try to say that you are doing something wrong.
Putin just passed legislation through the Duma that said there's not going to be, you can't have same-sex marriages, and it enabled him to be
Yeah.
president until he's dies essentially. So, and
Yeah.
the Duma just went along with everything. So how was he able to have the representative?
Not only Duma, but also the Constitution Court.
Wow.
The Constitution Court. Yes, which is very crazy and corrupt. Yeah, but it's a lot of people who discuss this. I think now it shows more because before there was people in Russia who'd be speaking against Putin, but a lot of people would be supporting. Not really a lot, but some amount of really strong fans that they always use the same arguments that there is no one else who can be a president, or just being a crazy fan. And they it, what did I want to say
Well, what I was trying
about
to
the
understand,
court and about the
why is
yeah.
there, I mean, there is opposition, people like Navalny, and youth uprisings like in the white Rebellion or whatever they called it. So there's opposition, but how was he able to have such a total control of government? What is because he what does he offer that people say we'll do whatever you want?
No, he only offers propaganda on the TV, and that's all. He controls the TV, and he has people working on the TV, on the radio shows, that brainwash people. That's all. They try to suppress the freedom of speech, and this kind of things, and democracy, and not letting people to do the strike or their rallies, or to be the opposition or politics, because they usually cheat on the elections. They usually put like a lot of fake documents there, and no one basically, like, no one in Russia who thinks critically think that this election is fair. This is not fair election. They can show on the TV that if you put together all the numbers, you get 146%. Yes. And in Russia, we have this joke that I'm pretty sure 146%, because they showed this on the TV, on the election, how Putin won the election. If you put together the numbers, was 146%.
But there was a big uprising.
Not 100%.
There was a big uprising, I think, in 2014, and they had white toilet paper as kind of a symbol. So there was a lot of protest against that election cheating. But and then there's been uprising since of youth led around Russia. Where does that?
I was 16 then, and I really remember this. I wanted to go to the protest for the first time, but I had a boyfriend who would tell me, "Don't go there. It's dangerous. Don't do this." And then I was like, "Okay," but I was really angry at this point that this is happening, because there was a lot of videos that was recorded on this election, and it was showing that it's all fake. So yeah, I wanted to go there, and maybe I would start some kind of political activism if I would, but it had to move for several years later. Yeah, but what I wanted to say, I remember now, is that at this point, more people now can see that Putin is not, because before there was a lot of arguments between these fans of Putin and opposition, and now it's more clear that it's a really crazy situation with this. This constitution change, and that he wants to renew his years, like he wants to start from zero again.
Right.
That's what he wants to say.
Right. And that's happened. I mean, the government said, "Okay, you're our king. We'll do what you want." What I think is interesting too is that this is not unique to Russia. That around the world there's a growing desire for strong men to lead us, like nationalists, populists, like Bolsonaro in Brazil, and Trump in U.S., and Erdogan in Turkey, and the head of the Philippines. So it's not just a Russian phenomenon of somehow people think this strong man who has big propaganda machine will solve their problems, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's very childish position from the people, is that they cannot take the reality and take the responsibility in the democracy, and they want to think that one person will solve a problem of everything, but it never happens. I mean, the most developed countries are the most democratic countries, and North Korea is where people starve and die, and they have the strong man. But the strong man is that one strong man cannot decide for everyone, because I think it's neuroscience, because one brain is not enough to decide all the problems. So it's just you cannot. It's not real. You cannot expect it. It will never be a good idea, because it's better to always have the networking and connection, and not one person,
And they're
because one person can mistake
like Bolsonaro and
a
Trump
lot.
were denied the virus, the coronavirus, and said, "Oh, it's just a hoax. It's no
Yeah.
big deal." So I think people are beginning to see. I hope that these leaders live in fantasy land, and just because they say something on Fox News or on Russian TV doesn't mean it's true.
Actually, this Russian TV, Russia Today, is going to close, I think, in the US, because they cannot pay, because Russian ruble is now really low. So they get the money from the government to pay this, and they cannot pay because it's really low now. So you will be free from propaganda, from Russian propaganda TV,
Well, but we
because
know
of this.
Russian bloggers worked through the internet to influence the election. Just to finish a little bit
Yeah.
with you before we go into your activism, what did you study in university?
I studied management.
And what kind of career
Management, yeah.
does that lead you to?
Um, well, at the end of my study, I was doing this. I started to organize this ecology festival that was like a year ago or something, and then I got really into this ecology thing, and I was not working. I was not having the job. I was doing mostly this activism, and also I was doing the renovation in the apartment, and like some things in the house. Yeah, and I was doing, yeah, mostly activism, but I I also organized a festival that was in the support of domestic abuse survivors recently on the 8th of March. So I'm kind of I think it's kind of like management too. It's organizing things, and putting things together, making advertisements, inviting people, inviting bands, organizing. Like last year, I was organizing this festival for about ecology, then the rallies for Fridays for Future, and all that. So I kind of like to do things on the internet, and to publish things on the Instagram, and do to do the promotion stuff like this.
Got it. Do you have siblings, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have sister. She's 4 years younger than me,
And is she an
so she's
activist
now
as well?
21. No, I think not. She's studying in Moscow now for singing.
Hmm.
She's planning to be a singer, like
In the
opera
U.S.,
singer. Yeah.
in the U.S., someone's at my door real fast. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, Charlie. I'm doing a Skype interview. Go ahead. Everything's in the garage. Thank you. Thank you. In the U.S., a big issue for students is it's so expensive, and the average student graduates with $25,000 in debt. Is it free tuition in Russia?
We have some free education, but my education was not free, but it was not too much expensive. But I think that the quality of my education was not really good, and I, I think in the US you have really good quality, but however, it's really expensive. Yeah,
So,
I know.
did you have huge class sizes? What made it not good quality?
No, I just think that the information that we get there is not relevant. It's not. It's like you cannot really use it. It's not practical. It's a lot of information, or it's a lot. The course is just has like a bad quality. You know, like they give you the information that you don't need, and they try um, to teach you that, but actually maybe it's already no one is using that, or it's just to exercise something that they invented in the program. So it really feels like we have this big problem in Russia that the education that you get here, maybe in some areas it is good, but in a lot of cases the companies are saying that they cannot work with the people who just graduate from the university because they don't have the knowledge for the work that people need to do now. So it's really can be old, or it can be just not a good quality of the course, and people spend a lot of time investing a lot of time in this education, and then they have to study again on the work, or like the job, the workplace. They have to organize in other courses and
Right.
stuff like this.
It used to be that because of World War II and so many men were killed, that women were 75% of the physicians and they were blue collar workers. They were in a lot of traditional jobs. Has that stayed the same in terms of the fields that women and men go into?
Um, Somehow we have the limit on the, I think on 400 jobs for women. It's like driving the metro car, or some considered hard jobs that women cannot work. But some of them are ridiculous. I mean, women can work there if they want. Anyway, there shouldn't be any limit. If it's hard for a woman, she will not go and work there. It's her choice, but she need to have the opportunity to work. So in Russia, we are trying to push this, that women need to have the same job opportunities, and we don't need this list of the jobs that women cannot take. And I think that economical situation now is really different from what was like 70 years ago. So I really don't know, but I feel like we also have the pressure from the church and from the government to the patriarchal system, and that government is trying to push that women need to produce more kids and these kind of things. So I think it makes harder to work because you always meet this stigma, and you always meet this confrontation that people are trying to say that you need to have kids, or that they take you as a sexual object, or a mother, and not giving the permission to work, or some problems with abortion, you know, like mm, in some places the doctor is trying to say, oh, you should go first see uh, in the church, you should talk with the priest in the church, maybe they will change your mind and stuff like this. Yes.
What's interesting to me is that when the Bolsheviks took over in 1917, they said women should work, we have daycare, we have community eating, we have all kinds of um, public support systems so men and women can work equally. And then I guess when Stalin came in, all that went to the wayside and they went back to, oh, women should have babies, kind of a thing.
I don't really know because I didn't study that what was happening with the women's rights during Stalin's period, but I think that women were still working. I guess so. I don't think there was a lot of this reproduction pressure.
I
This
think he
during this
tried
time.
to say you
He
couldn't
was.
get abortions because he wanted babies.
I think he was more trying to push people to work for free, like in Gulag, and you know, to build this economy and make slaves from people and all this stuff. So Stalin's time is more remembered as the time of repression when people were always scared that someone will come to the house and take the husband from the family or someone.
Yeah. Then
And yeah.
uh, you got involved with activism and Fridays for Future because you started to organize the gathering for your school, your university project, or what got you thinking I really have got to take action here? This is a crisis.
Well, for me, the first step was not about climate crisis. I was just concerned about environmental crisis, about the trash, uh, about deforestation and stuff. Just, just the planet is getting dirty, and about economical reasons that, uh, not economical reasons, but about, for example, like fashion industry that is, uh, or like growing the cotton that like the thing when they grow the cotton for the fashion industry, they used they use this pesticides and
Pesticides.
pesticides, yes, and all the stuff. So I was thinking this is really bad. This is so horrible, and this has a massive impact. And I watched some documentaries, and I just realized that this system is a little bit crazy and that it's harming people and it's harming nature. And, I was confused like, why is this happening this way? This is really crazy. And I wouldn't expect this in my life, like that people would do this. So I started to connect to people here who are concerned about environment, and I met a guy who was speaking on one conference, and he was the leader of the ecology project in his university. And we talked with him, and we decided to organize something. And then later on, in the short time, there was the invitation from the other guy from the other university that we organized the ecology festival. So this is how I started to organize this. And then during this festival, we had a gathering in the university of this second guy, uh, where there was like basically in this university they have the office of UNESCO, and we had the big talk about um, global some global sustainable goals.
From the UN, yeah.
Yeah. So because they have this UNESCO office in the university, they know it. So I was really inspired by that. I never heard before. I was like, wow, this is really good ideas about education, about environment, and this kind of things. And at the same time, I had the feeling that our country is also damaging the environment, and that our government is really corrupt. And as of course, there was a lot of things that I didn't know, but I could put some points together. And then I saw the pictures from the protest of Fridays for Future somewhere. I don't remember where, but like in Instagram. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, and this is like a real action, and people go out and they not beg someone or like stand on their knees and say please do this or that. They really are straight and they're saying like we need the change, we want to stop the trash, the pollution, and all the stuff. And this was like I had the same kind of emotions at the same time. I had these feelings that so this went along with this feelings that I had. And I connected to Fridays for Future on the Instagram, and I asked them, is there someone in my city doing this? So there was three girls in, I think, in May, and they organized like a really small rally in my city. They had
Excuse me,
the
this is
banners with
2019. In 2019?
yes,
Mm.
yeah, and they had these banners with polar bears and etc. So first for me this was just the protest about environment, and I didn't know about climate change much. I was just like, okay, I will get into this, I will find out what is going on. And because to understand climate change is really, you need to spend a lot of time to understand this. Actually is like you need to hear people talking, discussing, and different arguments and different points of view. So you need to see these graphics and analysis what is happening there, and what is the reason, and which kind of consequences it can have. So yeah, so for me it was like, okay, first I get into this, then I will understand more. And basically later I had the chance to understand it from like really good experts and talk to them. So I'm really happy that I had kind of like a good information provided by experts.
That was at conferences
Until
or online?
uh, I think it was on the conferences, but also online, because when you are surrounded with people who are interested in the issue, you always talk this and you share something that is happening there or there. And then also in the in a quite short time after um, after I was in Fridays for Future and we organized something here, and there was these wildfires near my city actually, um, and it was like a really huge amount of forest burning. So of course, like people from Greenpeace said that it's because of climate change, and basically a lot of people said that later. And it was, uh, I, I mean, the place where I live, I never been in this situation because we always have the calm place here, and never happened to me to be surrounded by the smoke, and it came to my city, and it felt like a really serious situation because during my lifetime it never happened.
When were
So
those wildfires?
fires, yeah.
When?
Where?
When?
When? I think it was in July, in the middle of summer. Yeah, it was really big.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I was on the conference that was organized uh, for Fridays for Future in Lausanne.
Ah. When was that?
This was in August.
Hmm. How many people roughly were there, and from how many countries?
I think from 36 countries. I think so, and there was like 500 people.
Of those 500, roughly what percentage were young women?
I think quite a lot, because somehow there is a lot of women in the environmental movements in general.
If you were pressed, roughly what percentage at Lucerne in Switzerland?
I don't know. I don't remember. I cannot say now.
What about in your city?
I need.
What percent are women in your local organizing?
We have more. We had more women, mainly who are more active. Is usually women and few guys.
And why do you think that is? Because that's true almost everywhere, that the people who are doing the organizing are young women.
I think because men want to put all the hard work on the women. Because women clean up the mess and men make the mess.
That is interesting. I never thought of that, that women clean up the messes. Wow.
But it's hard work to do the environmental. It's really hard. It's really hard emotionally because you also meet a lot of problems, and you meet with stuff like this. The nature is destroyed, people are dying, and it's quite hard, I think, emotionally.
It's hard just to see the little
And
koala bears in Australia that were burned, their paws burned. I mean, yeah, it's hard. The polar bears.
yeah, maybe also because of the socialization that women are more to emphasize, I don't
They're
know.
more empathetic.
Uh, yeah, like more empathetic and being able to feel this kind of emotions of compassion. I mean, of course, not all women can be a psychopath who don't understand the compassion and this stuff. So it's more like a brain structure. But I think in general, if you look at the stereotype, is that uh, man should be more like a hard person, more less empathetic, and women should be more like empathetic. So I don't know.
Interesting.
So
I'm thinking
to
of
to
Putin.
to do the maybe for men is just for men is just they are ashamed to show this emotion of compassion because they are grown to be like a strong and not 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 expressing these emotions such as sadness and regret and all this kind of yeah, or like being offended with something, this kind of emotions that they would say that is more for women.
Well, I think of Putin having pictures of himself everywhere with no shirt, riding on a horse, wrestling, in a submarine, fishing. So Putin definitely tries very hard to convey that kind of picture of the muscle man on riding on his tank or whatever.
Yeah.
But do you see that changing among your peers? I mean, all over the world, I think people are realizing that gender roles can be limiting for both men and women. Do you, among your peers, do you see that where feminism is making an influence?
Uh, yes, I think yes, but it's just happening right now, I think, because there is some feminists in Russia who are bringing this conversation to the public, and people just start because we also have this. We have a lot of bad bad opinion about feminists. Is that is always aggressive or showing their how do you call it?
Yeah, they're hairy armpits.
Hair, yes, hair and stuff, and so sometimes people are just triggered by the word feminist. They want to start being aggressive and to say that you want to destroy the traditions in our country, and all this kind of stuff. But later, when people start to discuss, they understand that it's actually very rational and that it has very very rational ideas. So yeah, but to understand these people, like for example, I'm I'm saying openly that I'm a feminist, and a lot of guys from like who I know surround me, they maybe they don't think that it's a good thing, but still I'm still speaking about this and posting and writing something, and then they start to talk about it or being interested, and they start to research something and discuss between themselves, and they understand, for example, some start to understand what is sexism and stuff like that. I don't say that they are perfect now, but at least they are getting, or also they are making fun of, because there is sometimes a scandal in the media about some feminists saying something to some company about sexism or the way they communicate or they treat people or something, and this this social media um, public pages, they want to put this like this feminist said this, and they start to make jokes about it, but actually it works for good because they start to remember the words that feminists use.
Got it.
And then they start to understand the meaning of these words, and then they are actually seriously understanding these words.
Ah.
So
The group that has the most fame in the West is Pussy Riot, and
yes,
their videos and whatever. Have they made an influence in Russia?
uh, I think it's a lot of people in the other countries know Pussy Riot, but in Russia, I think I'm not sure because I didn't ask a lot of people, but uh, well, they are doing the good work about helping the. They have their own media, so they always post there about political activists or uh, about someone getting arrested or something that is happening in the jail, because you know that they've been put in the jail.
For
So
2 years.
they started few projects, like maybe if you follow them you don't even know that it was started by Pussy Riot.
Ah.
Yeah, but actually they do kind of like not this uh, face work, but they actually do this NGO kind of work, you know. So they really start like a really good projects.
Are they
So
do they live in Russia now?
I don't know, because I saw a lot of. I think yes. I saw a lot of videos of Nadia Riot. She was in the US recently.
Yeah.
She's doing something like she's posting pictures with Bernie Sanders and stuff. And I don't know if she, I, I don't know if she lives here or there. But in general, if you want to say about their media in the like face in the media, for example, in the West, you can see that they are presented in a good way, and in Russia they are presented in the bad way. Like they were presented uh, in a really bad way, and then they've been put into jail, which was really crazy.
And they're not jails where you have clean food and air conditioning. They were really difficult conditions in
Yeah,
those prisons out in the wilderness somewhere.
yeah.
I think they didn't have enough food or sleep, or they had the lights on in the rooms all the time.
They had to work there like crazy. So they when prisoners work there, they don't have any work conditions. That they don't have any human rights. They don't have enough sleep or enough food or enough breaks and all this kind of things. So when they went out, they start to talk about it, of course, because they had this media, and they start to they give information to the journalists, and then they started these projects about prisoners and political prisoners being in the jail, and in
For
general about conditions in the prison.
for people who are listening, the reason they were put in jail is they did a song in the Russian Orthodox Church altar where women aren't supposed to go, and it was like less than a minute or something, and that's why they were in jail for 2 years, right?
They've been in jail because it's been told that they insulted the feelings of
The church,
believers.
yeah, and the church.
Yeah, yeah. Like, no, basically, but I don't understand why you need to put to jail because someone insulted someone's feelings.
Oh my goodness.
For 2 years.
Oh boy.
I mean, at this point, if there was really like insult and stuff, they could ask them to pay the money, and that's all.
Or do
But they put
community
in the jail
service. Clean the
because of course
church.
it was the political reason to put them.
Yeah, right.
It's not because of the church. I think it's because of the political reason, because they already then they started to do the action against our prime minister, against Putin, all these people. So
There was a campaign against the prime minister with shoes. Like he had bought so many expensive shoes and with ducks, little yellow duckies, because he had this huge estate with a pond with a duck house.
yeah,
That kind of
yeah.
thing that makes a difference, right? Could you have those symbols of corruption?
Yeah, we have this everywhere. We have the symbols of corruption everywhere. Yeah, if you look at Navalny's videos, it's really easy. I think also I have a friend from Kazan, and he sent me the images. I mean, just my friends telling me, because it's not, like people telling each other, someone works there, another works there, and they see this and they say, like, for example, they take, like, recently my friend told me that they take the territory that is conserved nature, and they take the part from there for, like, for the prime minister, because he wanted to take this place. Then it was rejected for some reason, but it was given to deputies, right? Is it
Deputies.
correct?
Deputies.
Deputies, yeah, for their house, like a spa, like a huge spa thing.
Country home.
So
Dasha.
yeah,
A dasha.
they so it's really expensive, and also they use these nature reserves, for their own, for, like for their own fun, and just being on the nature, and taking this to the private, just
That is corrupt. That really is corrupt.
yeah.
In your current organizing, are you mostly focused with Fridays for Future, or what kind of organizations are you working with?
Um, so last year we started to have the problems that we didn't get the strikes confirmed. It's like we tried. So the thing that we would have the problem is that our city hall is doing completely ridiculous thing. Is they always saying that when you try to give the appointment for the strike, or for the rally, or for the picket and stuff, they try to say that at the same place, at the same time, there is another rally already appointed.
Every time.
Yes, and there is never anything happening. So last time we would go and take the videos that there is nothing. And actually, I recently found out that it's actually uh, I don't know how to say that, but this is a crime. The thing that they do is actually the crime with our law.
It violates the law. It's a violation.
Yeah. It's the law violation, and it's actually like a bad law violation. But last time also other activists, like ecology activists, that were trying to organize a rally, and then they also went to the court because of the actions of our city hall, and they say, but we have all the papers. Of course, that they ask some random person to put their name and say that they organize the rally, and then they cancel. So they do this, and they also been kind of rude to us in the last strikes, and they came with the police, and they try to say that you have the wrong banners, that you should not put the anything on English. And I had the banner in English because there was about Norway digging the oil in the Arctic, and Greenpeace asked us to take the picture with this banner to send this to Norway to support the people.
What did it say? What did it say in English?
It was saying that something like Norway needs to care for the future or something. And they try to say that they cannot read the banner, so it's prohibited. And then she was trying to say that that you need to find this in the law. And I know that there is not none of these things in the law. And I told her that there is none of this, and then she said to the other person later that this is in the Constitution,
That you can't have
which is a,
signs in another language?
yes,
Was this a police person or a city government person, woman?
city government administration,
And what?
which is
Who do
complete
you
nonsense. Of course, you don't have this on the Constitution.
who do you
Then,
think
of
was
course,
influencing her? Because she probably was doing what she was told, right?
I don't know. But I think, well, I think that this is happening not only in my city, it's happening in other cities. We made a big article together with the human rights group about this issue because we wanted to organize the bigger strike and we couldn't organize it in 5 or 6 cities. So I organized to make the article about it with the human rights group. So they collected all the information from all the cities, and this is not only in my city, it's also happening in other cities in the same way, absolutely in the same way. So I think it's coming from the
From
top
Moscow.
government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your city is 4 hours east of Moscow?
Uh, it's 4 hours on the plane.
Oh.
Yeah, if you go on the train, it's 2 days.
Oh. And it's to the east, closer to China?
Yes. Yes, it's closer to China and Kazakhstan.
Ah. Um, so what's the strategy in do you do digital strikes if you can't strike in person, or how are you what's the strategy to fight this shutdown?
I'm trying to basically to communicate these problems about human rights violations, that we cannot protest and this kind of things. So I recently was at the meeting of environmental defenders' rights at the UN, and they actually there was 5 defenders. One was me from Russia, one from Brazil, one from Africa, another from Africa, and from Philippines. And we talked about, and also the girl. There was the girl later. She was from Turkey, and we talked about the issues that we face. So I talked to the UN Special Rapporteurs on the human rights. I don't know if we will be able to solve this problem, but at least, um, yeah, at least we are getting some. After this, after me going there, I mean, at least I'm trying to. I'm also trying to contact journalists after we do something, because we did a big campaign, Let Russia Strike for Climate, and when I was in Madrid, I also had a big banner in Russian, like a really huge one, like 5 meters. And it actually brought attention of Russian media.
What did it say?
And it was saying that climate change is real, act now. And it brought attention of Russian media. I also contacted some Russian media and I said that we did this. And then also there was other friends from Fridays for Future International, and they start to scream, "Let Russia strike for climate! Let Russia strike for climate!" So we had this digital campaign, "Let Russia strike for climate," and
This was
also
in Madrid last year.
no, this in offline, yes, it was in Madrid, but in digital, we had a lot of people. We asked a lot of people to take the pictures. Let Russia strike for climate, and then we also did the protest in front of Russian in front of Russian embassies, So there was the protest in Portugal, in Lisbon, that was organized by local Extinction Rebellion and Fridays for Future. And in this case, there was the guy who got in the jail for for unauthorized strike. So uh, there was also this campaign about let Russia strike for climate, and people in Portugal protested in front of Russian uh, embassy, and also in other countries. I think people did in the same day. Yeah, so I don't know, but now these crazy things are happening with constitution and all this stuff. So everyone is more like, what is going on?
What's the official government policy in Moscow? Do they accept that there's climate change and that humans are responsible or not?
Um, we went to talk actually with Russian delegation at the COP in Madrid. Um, they always are trying to turn the conversation in the other way and go away from the answer and stuff. And yeah, basically, like our government accepts that there is the climate change, but they are trying to speculate around it, and Putin is speculating about it, and he is saying that yes, there is climate change, but there is no proof that it's because of the human activity, and he says that it can happen just because of the universal process.
Cycles.
Not cycle. Yeah, he would say about cycle, but he also says that it's the process in the universe, maybe. So it's more like some kind of religious
Oh, because
explanation.
he thinks that the West is so immoral and they accept homosexuality and all this kind of corrupt
Well,
stuff.
he has some weird ideas, um, like spiritual, actually esoterical ideas, actually, and he says that Russia is ruled by God, is the only country ruled by God, and who is God? Is him or who? I don't know, but he really speaks crazy things.
And the
But
implication is he's God's representative, right?
yeah, he does not say that, but he wants to make people guess that and think that if he says that Russia is ruled by God, that is somehow related to him. So I think this is what he has in his mind, and he really is acting crazy. But I don't know. I think he needs to check with psychiatrist. Really?
He and Trump and Bolsonaro, all of them need to see a
Yeah.
psychiatrist because they're sociopaths, narcissists, whatever.
Yeah,
that
or just a pathological liar or something like that. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's part of being a sociopath and a narcissist. Is
Yeah.
yeah. Um, so, do you have optimism that things will change, or are you pessimistic, or how do you think about our future?
I think that this crisis with coronavirus is going to put some awareness. I think it can put some awareness to people that there are some global issues, because this crisis went really global, and that even like if you live in Europe, you're still like Italy has more sick people now than they had in China,
China.
you know. So a lot of times people think that problems are somewhere else and not with them, but um, I think it really depends on the political stuff, because for example, like I was listening for like Bernie Sanders speaking recently, and he was saying that actually, for example, in the US, climate change will affect like California and San Francisco, or I don't remember where exactly, or like New York, and he says that this will affect us. This is real issue. So when the leader of the country would say this, people would understand. Yes, this is actually going to affect us. But if it's going to be someone like Trump, who says that it's Chinese virus, it's not going to affect us and stuff
It's
like
a
this, and
hoax. It's a
it's a
Democratic
hoax.
hoax.
It's the same way that he speaks about climate change and all the stuff. So it's really two different, completely different opinions, and one of them is true and one of them is not true. So like it really depends, like if people are gonna speak the truth or not. Because if someone will speak lies, in people can believe in lies. I myself sometimes believe in lies. So I think political leaders have a lot of influence on the things that they say, but somehow people are so used to believing in lies. They really want to believe in lies. Like they sometimes I think people don't want to have like a humble person talking to them and speaking the truth. I don't know why.
There was a president named Jimmy Carter who was a peanut farmer in Georgia, and he only got one term as president, partly because I think he was a humble, honest person.
Yeah.
That's an example. An issue among organizers globally who are progressive is how do we get things done and not have a military kind of hierarchy of bosses telling people what to do.
You mean in Fridays for Future?
Well, any kind of progressive group, I think it's an issue. So my question is, how do you organize, get things done with a flat organization?
We've been discussing this a lot, and I think it's the issue in a lot of groups in Fridays for Future that there becomes this structure that is not just, or I think I think you need to really put a lot of work in this. You really need to put a lot of work into the organizing the structure, because otherwise it becomes a really big mess, and you need to have the rules, but also the mechanisms of communication that like for example now in Fridays for Future, it can be hard if someone is abusing other person, and we kind of like we don't want this to happen and stuff like that, but we don't have the rules against it. And
You mean like verbally abusing someone, putting them down or criticizing them unfairly?
yeah, just I mean there was the there was the situations of like sexual harassment and just discrimination, sexism, racism, and stuff like this. So when you start to work in the organization, you start to see actually these kind of things, and there is already in the big companies they already have a structure, even though like of course not all the companies are perfect. People are still working on that, on how to stop the harassment on the workplace. So this is also workplace, but this is I think the danger of this is when people are trying to put fear in other people and then they try to control, because they try to intimidate the person and then control. So I really don't want this climate issue to become something to use against humans, that someone can put a fear and then try to control, and it's really easy. It can become like a cult.
Mm.
So, and cult is the top of this hierarchy and
Hierarchy, yeah.
totalitarian things. So, and I think it's a common fact, like a lot of people know that if you scare people, then you put more control and limitation. It's like with these terrorist attacks, and then they try to control everyone, read their messages, everything. So uh, I, I really don't want that people would use it in this way. So yeah, I think it should be a lot of awareness, and people need to see what is happening in life of, I don't know, like friends need to look at each other and take care, and you know try to see if there is some kind of issues like that are happening in the organization, and try to stand on the values of not being oppressed. I mean, in general, it's happening in the world, as you said. So, yeah.
So if you're organizing a strike, do you have like a task group that does publicity, and this group does check with the police, or how do you, what are the nuts and bolts of organizing a big event?
Mm, we had we didn't have like a really big event. I wanted to organize it in April, but I don't know if we're gonna organize something in April. But usually there was people just taking their responsibilities by themselves. Like some people are just offering help, or someone says, I will do this, I will try to bring that, I will make that. So we are coordinating that somehow. But we also, on the meetings, uh, we used the Extinction Rebellion way of communication. It was really good. It was uh, with a way when first there is some like someone offers something, and then people ask to clarify, or they objectify that on the turn. So like there is a moderator and people speak one by one, so everyone has the opportunity to talk. It's really important, so all people feel equal and respected, and they feel like they are heard. So I think for us it's really important to try to mandate it, and because sometimes it can become that people feel that they are not respected, they are not heard. Like one person is talking all the time, and then it becomes the fight, and it shows a lot of communication problems that we have. You know. So when we use this way of having these rules, so everyone talks one by one. If you want to suggest something, you can say it, and if you want to clarify something, Then we also use hand signs, like support, language. Um, like you don't support, you put your hands down. Yeah, like you want to say something and you take the line, and like technical point or stuff like that. So I think the hand signs are really helpful.
They used those in the uprisings in 2011 in the squares around the world, the twinkle and all that. So that that was used widely then.
Yeah, I think it really works. Yeah, but in general, there was the idea of organizing like a more democratic structure of uh, voting for people to represent, to go for some meetings or summits stuff. So some countries are more advanced in the structure, some countries are not. Also, I'm trying to develop Asia group, so to connect coordinators from Asian countries too, because I'm from actually Asian part of Russia. So for me, like Asian countries are closer sometimes than Europe. So yeah, we are trying to do something also with Asian people.
Do you
And
have a facilitator for meetings? Because it seems that we need to have someone say, okay, time's up for that agenda. Let's move on to this. Who's going to take
yeah,
responsibility for that? Do you have a facilitator usually?
um, on the Fridays for Future, first we didn't have from the first meeting, and it was really bad actually without. But now we start to think that maybe we need to have moderator, facilitator, and control the time stuff.
Because otherwise, as you say, some people talk too much, and then the meeting
Yeah,
goes on and on and on, and it's like, ugh.
exactly.
Um, I
Yeah,
I was
I
involved
agree.
in a really good, a well organized feminist group, and they had an agenda with time. So for this item, we're going to spend 10 minutes. And if we need more, we can vote if we want to extend. But if not, we stick to the agenda and the time limits. And they started each meeting with checking in. How are you feeling? And they ended each
Yeah,
meeting with, well, what do we need to change? Evaluation, what worked, what didn't work. And they had really good meetings, and they were feminists.
yeah, yeah. It's actually really good also to check how people feel. This this also is used in Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, it's a good thing.
How do you work with Extinction Rebellion?
Mm. Um, I was we I was doing some stuff in Extinction Rebellion, like just different things.
In
Like
Russia?
yeah, but
Um,
I didn't do something in my city, but I was helping other activists in Moscow.
what other groups do you look to internationally that are youth-led climate activist groups besides Extinction Rebellion, Fridays for Future?
Which groups do I like?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there is Youth for Climate. By 2020, we rise up.
What is 2020?
By 2020, we rise up.
Ah, that's a group.
Do you know?
No.
It's kind of a movement. Yeah, it's also the other movement.
Where did it start?
Mm. I don't remember where, but I think in Europe.
Hmm. Any other
Yeah,
groups? So Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion. By 2020, we rise up.
yeah. There is there is like there's the art projects. There's something like 100 years project. Uh, just a net action climate action network, action network, 350. Um, there's also the people from the art group project. I don't remember, but I think I can send you. Or wait, I can check in the Instagram. I probably have them tagged, but I need to find this picture. There's indigenous peoples groups, like different groups actually, few of them. Just in general, these global goals, UN environmental programs,
Oh yeah.
IUCN. I'm trying to find, but I think it's called Project Pressure.
Treasure?
Pressure.
Like
Pressure.
Pleasure?
Pressure. Yeah. Pressure.
Oh, pressure.
Yeah.
Got it.
So this project they visualize things. I will send the Instagram now.
Okay, thank you. Just a few more questions. I know it's really late for you. How do you keep from burning out? How do you stay centered and keep your batteries from draining?
Um, I'm like I changed. I don't know. How do you feel that you are burnout? Like you don't want to do this anymore, or
Yeah, just tired.
yeah. Well, I felt really tired. Um, I think the best thing that can help more is to be with friends or with family. I think just be with people, not talking about this issue.
Take a break.
Like maybe some calm moments, but also going in the nature is nice. But for me, when I'm on the nature, actually, I'm getting a little bit more anxiety because I'm anxious for for the nature. Uh, yeah.
Um,
So just maybe switching the activity.
Something that interests me, concerns me, is in the US, UK, I don't know if in Russia, but there's an increasing number of teenagers who are anxious and depressed, especially girls have more anxiety now than before. And I wonder if that people are talking about that as an issue in Russia or not.
Yeah, people talk about it, but it's not like all people, not like all people talk about it because there is, it's like you can call it a bubble. When you live in the bubble with activists and people like feminists and LGBTQ plus activists and psycho activists. So like sex education activists and stuff. So you talk about these things, and when you have this bubble, yes, people talk about this, but I don't know if this bubble is actually big or how popular is that. It's like you can feel like, yeah, people talk about it, but then you go somewhere and you meet the people who completely don't understand the they don't understand that you should not rape women, or that you need a consent to sleep with someone, to have sex, and or that you should not say racist things. And it's just that you always talk about this so much in the details, and then there is someone who completely lives in a different reality. So
Well, I think is it true that like a large majority of people in the countryside don't even have an indoor toilet? They have to go outside to use a little
yes,
outhouse, or they have water from a well. So their life is different.
yeah, 12%, 12% of Russian citizens,
Wait, 12% have what?
they don't have this. They have this kind of toilet that you are talking about is 12%. Yeah.
That's not so many. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
No, it is many. 12. It's 12% of the people don't have the toilet in the house.
Right. Just a
Yeah.
few more questions. I'm sorry. How do you deal with criticism and opposition? Because it seems like climate activists get a lot of trolls and people who are saying crazy
Really
things.
bad. I'm really bad about it. Uh, uh, yeah. For me, it's I'm always getting angry and asking why you're doing this. Like, can you stop? And stuff like this. And so, yeah. Well, I don't know. Like I'm saying that before, I would try to understand the logic of some people, but now I think that some people don't have any logical reasons to do or say things. And for example, like my family is pretty much like criticizing climate, like these issues that I talk about, and it becomes an argument, but it's just really I don't understand their logical reasons behind it. Like you want to protect the pollution, like what is the point? I don't understand, But for me, I love nature, so for me it's like how you can say this. Maybe they don't have this feeling for the nature, so they think that they can say all the random things to protect their, I don't know, maybe some people also are just trying to argue uh, because because they want to prove that they are more important than you, and it's not the reason why. It's not the logical reason behind it. It's just that people want to say something and try and feel like they are right. So and then they cannot step back. So I don't know. I don't know what is driving these people. Like
Last question. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What will you be doing?
I don't know. I think it depends on a lot of factors, because it's not like, maybe recently, if you would ask me this like 1 year ago, this question would drive me crazy, because I was thinking that everything is not stable at all. So I had this feeling of like not having this stable ground, and that I'm not able to plan something. But now, after I stay I stay at this apartment in the house, and I have this stable house, and I can plan my life better. It becomes better. So, as I told you, I was traveling a lot, and it was related to renting apartment, moving all your stuff. And for me, I realized that this is crazy lifestyle that is taking my mental health away. That I cannot. You're always thinking about moving, that you need to bring your stuff, so it just gives you the headache. So I had a lot of stress about that thing. So, as I told you, that the reason why I stayed here in Russia, it was because I was like, I'm not able to move somewhere anymore again. So I just decided to stay here, and I cleaned up the apartment, and I have my things here. So I also learned more about political situation and stuff like that. But I think it depends on the political situation.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you could speak as frankly and not be afraid. So that's a good sign.
Well, I just don't feel. I just don't think that is going to. Someone is going to look for it, or like.
It
I
probably
don't think
helps
that
that you're
some.
so far from Moscow. If you were in Moscow, it might be more scrutiny.
Yeah, but also there is a lot of things in the internet, and I don't think that like Putin is going to research every word that someone speaks about him.
Is there anything else that we've left out that you'd like to add in terms of how to be an effective organizer or what to do about climate change?
Well, I feel like people sometimes in activists are focused a lot on just one way of doing things. And from like learning management, I know that there is different people for different things. So when you have the group of people, it's always will be, some people will be more introvert, other more extrovert, also different intellectual levels and stuff. So I think that people need to learn how to work in the group better. So, or need a good management or facilitator or something, because well, I think in this way, like if self-organized groups, people really need to uh, kind of, if you do, for example, I feel like if you do one thing, you should not say like everyone should do the same thing. You should not say that everyone should be on the strike, or that everyone should do this or that. Like, even if you are on the strike, you still want to go to the shop and buy some water. So you need the person who works in the shop, at least to buy this water. Or you want to stop, like you want to close everything, but then you yourself will need something, and So I think that people who work a lot. They don't have this. They don't have the time to put to invest into activism. They want to change something, but they are too busy with their work. So this is the good thing about activists, that we actually do something that other people cannot do, and we make this also for other people.
Yeah.
So that's why we should not be too judgmental, maybe sometimes, to the persons.
Right.
You know.
Are you still modeling?
No, I don't anymore. I feel like. Uh-huh.
No, go ahead. You feel like
No, I feel like modeling itself didn't bring me this feeling of just being alive, at least. Like it's just I didn't feel good, you know, in an emotional level of what I'm doing, you know.
it's kind of nice that people are talking about fashion with slow fashion where you buy use recycled products or cotton that's made organically. So people are focusing on the fashion industry because it can be so much of a polluter.
Yeah, it's this. I think it's the second big polluter in the world.
After agriculture or oil or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember, but
It's a
I
big
know
one.
about it. Yeah.
Okay.